Hi, thank you for joining us. I'm Carrie and I'm here with Robert, who does the historical tours of Greater Holyoke. He offers both public and private tours of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, as well as parks and streets in Holyoke, Chicopee, and South Hadley, Mass. You can find out more information about his tours on his website at holyokecanaltours.org, where you can also see some of his videos and other podcasts as well. So today we're going to be talking about the Wyckoff Park neighborhood in Holyoke, Mass. So who designed this gorgeous neighborhood of Holyoke?
There were two sons of Frederick Olmsted, who after he died in 1902 took over the business. And they designed all the Olmsted designed parks of Holyoke. And there are many. And this is not even a park. It's a residential community. It's called a park. It's right next to it is in the old Mount Tom Golf Course area. And it was designed by these two brothers, made in the beginning 4 roads. 3 would be residential, 1 would be an access into the clubhouse of the Mount Tom Golf Course. And they designed it such that the roads were designed, and then along each road they put in all the grids for all the homes they were going to sell. And people could then buy them. It started in 1924, and it grew and grew, especially during the 20s. It grew a lot. But at one point, it actually stopped 1929 to 1945. The Great Depression hit, and then World War II hit. And so you'll see on this set of streets some gorgeous houses from the 20s, and then it won't be any more houses till the 50s. But the brothers themselves designed each landscape to have a great view, both backwards and forwards. The forwards gives you the Connecticut River view, backwards gives you Mount Tom view. And it was designed such that every house lot was at a different angle. It was angled such that they have their own view of the Connecticut River. And it was a great design, and it worked. And the streets, of course, are still there.
Now tell us briefly about the lie of the Mount Tom Golf Course.
Now, the Mount Tom Golf Course itself has changed through the years many times. In the beginning, in 1898, it was 9 holes. And it stayed that way, 9 holes, to 1914, when finally Donald Ross was called in, and he designed it to be 18 holes. And so it greatly expanded. Even in 1911, though it changed, 9 holes changed very slightly, so there was a redesign even then. And those 18 holes went from east to west. So the clubhouse was near Northampton Street, but the lie of the greens in the fairways was mostly from east to west, heading towards the Whiting Street Reservoir. And you had a beautiful setup, but many things happened along the way. What changed drastically from that 1914 setup was that they wanted to sell these homes right on where the golf course was. So they had to move the golf course to put the streets in and the homes in. And so Mount Tom Golf Course shifted greatly to the west. It still would lie along the Whiting Street Reservoir, but its clubhouse now would be shifted inwards by about 200 yards. Its first hole would go slightly towards the north, and then it would go off second hole towards the west, and then it would go towards the Whiting Street Reservoir and go along there and back and forth. 18 holes were all shifted because they wanted to have a place to sell these new homes. Now, Donald Ross was called back. He had done the 1914 setup. He would do the 1924 setup also. He had to redesign everything from scratch. And so the line land. Now, it would change one more time. In 1966, Interstate 91 would come through. You would have it cut off. Only 5 holes would survive. The other 13 had to be redesigned, and it would go from north to south. So the direction of the course went from east to west to north to south, and so it had to be totally redesigned once again. So the lie of the land changed greatly for this golf course.
Now, what is your favorite landscape of Wyckoff Park?
Okay, if you go through the Wyckoff Park residential area, beautiful homes everywhere, beautiful landscapes everywhere. And so you have to really look around and find your favorite. But my favorite is the Joseph Woodward landscape at home. The reason why was that when the Olmsted were called in to do the roads and the plots for the homes, they were called back by some of the landowners when they bought the plot. And the Olmsted brothers were called back maybe 5 times. And the Woodward one was one of the first callbacks. And what they did, this was the only time in Holyoke where a landscape was done with the house designed also. So they had one house designer on the employ of their corporation, and they would put a beautiful landscape together with a beautiful house design. And so when you go look at it, the home blends into the landscape. And the landscape goes beautifully towards the house, and then towards the north, it drops down into a patio area. And then towards the back, has a beautiful fireplace and shed. The home blends so gorgeously into this landscape. It looks natural, like the trees and the bushes belong right with it. It's absolutely gorgeous. I got to meet the present landowner, and I told him it was a great house, and he tries to keep it up to the absolute high degree.
Now, so Albert Steiger had 2 gates built. Now, can you compare and contrast how they are?
Yes, he had one big gate at his bungalow. His bungalow went in 1913 in the very back of this development. The development didn't start until 1924. So he was there for 11 years at the end of a private road that he had. And then the development on this course came through. So he had a house right at the edge of the side of the golf course, and then the development came in through, and his house was on one of the roads. Now, at the front driveway of his house, he built a giant gate, which went splayed off, curving off in 2 different directions. It was so well designed and so well constructed that if you go out there now, 100 years later, you see that it's still in perfect shape. The design is beautiful. It's great looking at one of the plans and then looking at the actual construction, because you see it was done perfectly, and they've never had a problem, because most people that can afford the Olmsted Brothers designs could also afford to hire the best contractors to make that design. And so all these constructions in Holyoke that were constructed after Olmsted design still are in perfect shape, even 100 years later. Now, he made 2 gates. So he bought his plot for land, but across the street, he bought 4 plots. And what he did on the first one of that plot towards the east was, it was right across from the old clubhouse for the golf course. And he wanted to make a smaller gate that looked like his bigger one, but it would be for the golfers walking from the clubhouse, crossing the street, and seeing a masonry gate. They could walk up a path up to the tee for the first hole. So he contributed to the golf course. Now, he bought 4 lots. So this is 1 lot. 2 lots were in the middle, and he bought those only to make it look good. He gave the excuse, oh, I want to buy this for my sons. He never built on it. He just wanted to make it look good. The 4th plot, the one to the most to the west, he wanted for himself, and what he did there, from his bungalow down his driveway, through his big gates, he made a big path on the other side of the road that was his private path that would go out to the first tee. So he made one for all the other golfers, and then he made one for himself. And who was the contractor? He was his own contractor. So he got on a bulldozer and did it himself. And you can still see it has a beautiful design right through this curve. So it's a very, very beautiful neighborhood. And I did a tour in 2022. I'm doing another tour from a different point of view in 2023. And it'll be from this year from the point of view of what has happened to the golf course through the years. Thank you for coming on this tour.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, and you can find out more information again at his website at holyokecanaltours.org or email him directly at bobcat4214 capital B at yahoo.com, and hopefully you check out some of the other podcasts we have. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We're coming to you from South Hadley, Massachusetts. I'm your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Green. He offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Mass. So you lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
Yes, and this was the start of the Olmsted tour of Holyoke 2 years ago.
Okay, and so today we'll be talking about the Lewis Wyckoff house. So tell us about the Wyckoff landscape.
It is an Olmsted design landscape, and he hired them not only for his residence in the greater amount of land in back of his residence, he also ended up hiring them for the project called Wyckoff Neighborhood. And this Wyckoff house is a gorgeous house, but an okay landscape at this point. It's not as well taken care of as it should. Now we'll talk about Wyckoff and his mill along the way, and we'll also talk about those connections between the Wyckoff neighborhood and Olmsted's, and then what has become of the property. Now, if you look at the landscape towards just around the backyard of this house still looks okay. You can make out some bushes and certainly some pretty nice trees back there. And also, around the front, it has some of the original evergreen trees. There is some brush in front that is not part of the design, so I wish that were taken out. Now, part of his design was to include the land that was far back of his house and also on the sides. And what he did, he wanted a nice landscape back there to start up a type of neighborhood. So there'd be a private road going back there, and he wanted 6 houses put in. They ended up, I believe, putting 3 of the 6 houses in. So along both sides of his property, left and right, there are houses put in on the Olmsted design that he wanted. And his house, there's a house way in back that's also put on his landscape. But the other 3 houses never were put in. So the private road only leads basically to 1 house instead of 4, whereas the ones left and right had their own private driveways. So what he really wanted didn't come to fruition, but he also wanted Wyckoff neighborhood across the street developed, and that did succeed. So he was a planner, and he ran a great mill in Holyoke, and we'll talk about that.
And what mill did Wyckoff run?
Okay, he ran the White and Wyckoff card company, and they made greeting cards, postcards, index cards, any form of paperback card that you could think of. Playing cards, ad cards, which ad stores to pass out, card de vistas, any of those kind of cards were made by his company. Edward White and Joseph Louis Wyckoff lived very close to each other, about a third of a mile apart from each other. They had built the same house, and if you go look at them, you swear they're twin houses. They're still both painted dark blue, and they both have a beautiful design to them. Joseph Louis Wyckoff's house is officially on Olmsted design landscape, and the woods around it also. the Edward White landscape is not an Olmsted design, but you probably can guess he probably just took the design that the Olmsteds made for Wyckoff and used it on his own land. Now his land is very large. His design is almost a mirror image of the Wyckoff in terms of if the garage curves, the driveway curves toward the left, his on White property curves towards the right. If trees are going from south to north on Wyckoff's property, you can guarantee they're going the other direction off the driveway. So he made it look the same. And they both had not only a backyard, but he owned the land deep beyond it. In Edward White's case, he donated that land to Holyoke, and they ended up putting a school on it. And the school was named the Edward White School. And it's still there. All right, so this mill was right on the third level canal, right where the Willamette Bridge is. You could see it as you crossed from Chicopee to Holyoke. And it was small, but very, very successful. They were the best greeting card company in the whole world. They were that from 1890s up until the deep in the 1950s when they were displaced by Hallmark cards.
And so quickly before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you're interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com. And they are perfect for fun educational outdoor activities for the whole family or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. They're also good just for getting outdoors for the day. So getting back to our interview, what other connection is there between the Olmsteds and the Wyckoffs?
Okay, Wyckoff wanted to develop a whole neighborhood across from his street on the former Mount Tom golf course. And he hired the Olmsted brothers to do just that. And with a couple business associates, not Edward White, but a couple others, they made the Wyckoff neighborhood. Back then, it was only two streets, Central Park Drive and Mountain View Drive. And those streets themselves were planned out by the Olmsted brothers with a certain curve to them. And also many of the original homes there hired the Olmsted brothers to make the design around their houses. In one case, they even hired Olmsted to design the house itself. And so the connection with the Wyckoff is incredibly strong. And Wyckoff not only hired the Olmsted, he hired also the best golf course architect in the world. His name was Ross. And he had the next golf course that was displaced by the Wyckoff Village, but is put back of that. He made that design under Ross's terms. So Wyckoff was a great lover of landscape designers. He hired the best two in the whole world to do both its ventures. So he did his own landscape, the landscape behind it, the landscape across the street, and he had another great firm doing the golf course. So there's a lot of connections, and not only that, I told you that Edward White seems to have taken that design and put it onto his own land.
And what has become of the Wyckoff properties?
Okay, so his property is still one of the best homes in Holyoke. It's at, of course, 1040 Northampton Street. And I think it recently sold for about $900,000. And the property still looks a bit like the landscape that he ordered up. There's a little bit too much brush towards the front. And there's still a very nice stone wall towards the right-hand side that's part of the landscape, separated itself from his land, and he tried to get his first village, our first private driveway put in. And I'm never able to go back, but I'm sure in far back that the one house back there looks gorgeous because it's also on a designed land. Now, Wyckoff neighborhood itself is still gorgeous. The streets still have that natural curve and look that the Olmsteds loved. It's still a beautiful neighborhood, and still many of the homes are still in great shape. Now, the golf course, which wasn't Olmsted but was Ross, is again had to be changed once more. And that's because that second Mount Tom golf course had Interstate 91 pass through it, so that was changed drastically, and only maybe 5 of the holes are still the same.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours. And we want to thank our listeners again for tuning in. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from South Hadley, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Kuhn. He offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, Chicopee, and South Hadley, Mass. Now you lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
Yes, and I led one tour to his house as a part of a bigger one.
So today we'll be talking about Edward Townhouse. Edward Townhouse. Who is Edward Town?
He's one of the 3 Town brothers that ran National Blank Book. His job would either be treasurer or president, shift between the brothers. So 2 of the brothers decided to get their landscape around their house landscaped by the Olmsted brothers, and he had the most sophisticated landscape of all the 3 brothers, and probably the most sophisticated Olmsted design on a residence in Holyoke. And so we're going to talk about it along the way, about the house and the other brothers, and also, well, strangely, it had a planting guide. So it had a guide about what to plant where. All right, but he was a very important person in the history of Holyoke. National Blank Book is probably the most respected company in Holyoke, and it stayed around Holyoke for a very, very, very long time, over 100 years. And with his 2 brothers, Frank, Joseph, and Edward, they ran a great company. And it was a company that sold, just what it said, blank books, which were actuary books, or doctors' or surgeons' books, or teachers' books, any books that need to be lined out in certain ways. And they even started custom making them so that a specific hospital or a specific financial firm would have a certain kind of book. And the whole family loved Holyoke so much that they helped out in charity, and they also got their landscapes done. So we'll talk about that.
And tell us of the Edward Town landscape.
All right, this is a very sophisticated landscape. The landscape design still exists. If you go to my page under Olmsted's and did Edward Town, I think he's the last one in the gridded table. He has a page, and then it shows a map, and also shows a planting guide. And that planting guide I'll talk about later, but his house was set back from Northampton Street, and every type of plant that he liked would be found in the driveway going in a walkway going in, and then in the back it became even more majestic. In the back you had a rose garden and a perennial bush garden, and then it had a very rustic fence around it, and that was gorgeous. And even the very simple things like the laundry shed, the garage, the vegetable cellar, and the tennis court were surrounded by really nice looking bushes or trees. Everything was done so well. Both the walkway and the driveway going in were curved. The driveway then had an oval towards the middle, and then when it went back towards the shed and the carriage house, it had another curve to it. So it's a very wonderful look, this design. I hope you look at it. Very far back of his property, there was an orchard, and that he left natural. So his design was beautiful. Now, it had towards the front of Northampton Street a long line of bushes being put in on purpose. And then the driveway going back had about 2/3 filled with bushes, and the walkway only a small part, but it had lots of trees that were planted. And so if you put together this beautiful design and along with that match it off to the planting guide, you can see what it used to look like. Sadly, it doesn't look that way quite anymore. Sure, the walkway and driveway are still curved, but there's a lot of brush around, and I once tried to figure out some of the trees where I came to the conclusion some of the trees are still there, but the bushes are long gone, and probably the rose garden is long gone. Rose gardens need to be tended in order to grow.
So quickly before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you're interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And they are perfect for fun, educational, outdoor activities for the whole family, or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. And they are also good just for getting outdoors for a day. So getting back to our interview, what did the other brothers have to do with Olmsted's?
Joseph Town lived at 181 Linden Street with his wife, and they made an Olmsted design for their landscape. They hired the brothers, and it was quite gorgeous. Around one special section in front of the carriage up, but onto the south side of the house, they made what was called the secret garden for their children. There was a place where the two boys could play in there, and sadly that's gone. But they also made a curved walkway and a curved driveway and bushes and trees around. So he fully participated in what Olmsted, just like Edward did. Now, one brother of the three brothers, Frank Town, sure, he had a nice landscape, but it wasn't an Olmsted design. And for that reason, it's totally gone, except maybe a few trees. And they all three of them had walls put in under an Olmsted design. And every Olmsted design wall in Holyoke is still in fairly good shape, sometimes in great shape, sometimes in decent shape. But any one which wasn't Olmsted design, after now 100 years, is probably totally gone. And this is a good example because Frank Town's landscape with the wall is pretty much collapsed. And yet Edward Town's wall is still in great shape. And Joseph Town's wall is probably the worst shape of any of the Olmsted designs around Holyoke, but is still in good shape compared to most others that weren't Olmsted design. The reason why is because anyone that can hire the Olmsted brothers to make a design had a lot of money. And that means they could then hire the best contractors and landscape people to make the best arrangement possible. And making a wall like that takes a good contractor. If you could hire the best, that wall is probably still there after 100 years.
And tell us about the planting guide to the house.
All right, so besides just making up design, Olmsted Brothers made up a design, they also included a planting guide. And so what happens, you look at the first design, and it has the general look of bushes and trees. But you look at the second design they made for Edward Town, and they have a code on different areas, and they put ovals around those codes. So it might say something like 21-10, 26-9, 30-6. And what this means is the first number, you go out to the planting list, and it'll give you the Latin name of the plant. It'll give you in general how tall that plant will grow, how many you're going to need in total, all right, summed up. So, for instance, if I take one number, I'll take 14-9. If you go to the planting guide, 14 is Philadelphia's coronarias, and -9 means that you put at that location, that plant, but you put 9 of them. All right, so it's giving you a location, a plant, and how many you need. It's also giving you, since some of the plants are in multiple locations, it's giving you some total for the whole area. So the gardener or the landscaper can buy ahead of time how many plants they need of each type. And then they tell you basically where to put them. So they put the planting list design next to the overall design. You know right where to put them. And it's in a beautiful format. If you ever get a chance, look at landscape designers on the internet who put different plants on, and they know ahead of time they have different heights to them and different colors. And so the colors match each other, and the heights are a little bit different. So you're looking at, a yellow flower 2 feet high. It's very bright yellow in this part. And then a little bit over, maybe convex shape next to it, is a plant that's now 2 feet 9 inches high that has a purple color. And they complement each other. And so they did this for this Edwardtown house. And thus, this could be recreated. You could have this garden back to what it looks like 100 years ago. I'm sure the present owner don't care. There's a lot of brush around their area. But if someone ever comes in there with that in mind, they not only can historically renovate the house inside and out, they can historically renovate the Olmsted garden down to the very detail of what plant was where. Thank you.
So thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours. And we want to thank our listeners again for tuning in. And you can find out more information and tune into a large selection of other podcasts and much more at his website. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We're coming to you from South Hadley, Massachusetts. I'm your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Coleman. He offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Mass. Now you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
That's correct, and I gave this one last year as part of the Olmsted Designs of Holyoke.
So today we'll be talking about William Skinner II's house at 1155 Northampton Street. So tell us about the Skinner landscape.
Okay, this is probably the best Olmsted design landscape in Holyoke on the houses, and that's saying a lot because it's probably about 14 homes in Holyoke that were designed with Olmsted landscape to it. And this is also the biggest of all the landscapes by Olmsteds in Holyoke. It was under William Skinner II, who is the grandson of William Skinner, the silk baker. He's the son of Joseph Skinner. And he had stayed in Holyoke, and he built himself a house in 1930, and he hired the Olmsted brothers to make the landscape. The whole estate is called Dogwood, so he gave his estate a name, and it still holds. It's a beautiful house. You can't see it very well from the street. From some of the back streets, you can look into it during the winter time when there's no leaves. It's a home that's quite different. We're going to talk about that later on. We're also going to talk about the Skinner family and how well this house is being taken care of. But this landscape included 2 small reservoirs. There was an underground stream passing through here, and it was blocked up in a couple places to make landscaped reservoirs on the grounds. It also had a lot of trees put in some places, had a nice curved driveway going up the long property towards the house and around it. The house ended up having 5 different designs, and so one of them shows it. Then they put the landscape into place. It's a very beautiful landscape. You can tell by looking at the placement of trees how nice it was. Some of the bushes are gone, but you can tell by looking at the plans that it was very well made. Now, if you want to go there and see all that, you might be disappointed, but we'll talk about that later on.
And tell us about the Skinner house.
Okay, the house that's there is, again, I call it the whole estate Dogwood. And the house has, I have a couple pictures on my webpage that you can look at. It's off of Northampton Street. And it has a very long look, and then towards the back has a long extension made by design. The house was made in the French provincial style that I was quite familiar with. And the house is with beautiful chimneys. One of them is on the outside exterior, one's towards the middle. And if you could see it better, you would see that it's a 2-floor structure with a very large, and then one roof is pointing, the other one's more flat. And also, people say that the reservoirs complement the house very much because they're close enough to show off the house beauty these are reflected ponds, so you get a great view of the homes, even from the ponds themselves.
And quickly before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you are interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com. And they are perfect for fun, educational outdoor activities for the whole family or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. And they are also good just for getting outdoors for the day. So getting back to our interview, tell us about the Skinner family.
All right, the William Skinner, the silk maker, came to Holyoke in 1874. There was a flood on the Mill River after a dam collapse in Williamsburg, and he moved his mill and house to Holyoke. And he had many children. Some of them are William Skinner, Joseph Skinner, and Belle Skinner. And those children themselves started up a lot of good things in Holyoke, including charities. And then even the grandchildren of William Skinner tried to do their best. And for instance, William Skinner II opened up this beautiful house for himself in 1930. Now, the Skinner family's charity included the settlement house called the Skinner Coffee House that was on Main Street in Holyoke. It also included the Skinner Chapel that was alongside the Congregational Church. Joseph Skinner, the father of William Skinner II, went off to South Hadley and lived there for decades. And there he started off a golf course that's now belongs to Mount Holyoke College. He was on the board of trustees of Mount Holyoke College. And a few years before he died, he donated the top of Mount Holyoke, the mountain, to the state itself, and that park is now called Skinner Park. So the whole family is very much into charity, and they built up a silk mill that was the best in the world. It was the length of Holyoke Heritage State Park for its mill number 2, and its mill number 1 was right on Appleton Street. It was quite, both of them were quite beautiful.
And is this house being taken care of?
Well, that's the sad part. The Olmsted did a great job on the landscape in all regards, and the house itself was designed very well. Now, sadly, both are not being well taken care of. The present owner is not much into landscape, and so the grounds are neglected. There's too much brush around that needs to be cleaned up, and bushes need to be put back in set places. Of course, the trees are still there. They're hard to damage. I heard that the reservoirs might not be there anymore, but also the house outside is being neglected a bit. It definitely needs some work and some paint.
So thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours, and we want to thank our listeners again for tuning in. And you can tune into a large selection of our other podcasts and much more at his website. And again, that's holyokecanaltour.org.